Hello guys and welcome back to Oz on the Ball. Welcome to my round 23 tips video. So only 2 rounds left in the whole of the season, which is pretty crazy. Obviously finals, but 2 regular season rounds with full games. So yeah, it is pretty crazy that that's how long's left. And yeah, so sorry for a bit of a later video out on the Friday afternoon, but no footy until Friday night because of AFLW starting. So last week, 7 out of 9 was actually a pretty decent round in the end with some pretty close games, some one-sided games, but also some close games and some upsets. And Ollie's calls 4 out of 9, so not too bad for round 23 tips and Ollie's calls wise. So last week's tip wasn't amazing, wasn't terrible, 7 out of 9, so not great, not horrible. Yeah, top 49%, so about average. Hawthorn Collingwood. I tipped Collingwood, as most people would. I tipped them by 23. Hawthorn did, in fact, win by a fair bit as well, 64, so my margin was 87. Then Geelong Essendon tipped Geelong to get up in what was a pretty easy tip. And then Saturday actually turned out to be a decent game of days. Decent day games, which didn't look great at the start. St Kilda Richmond was low scoring, but it was close. St Kilda getting up in a pretty close one. Brisbane Sydney was probably one of the better games this season, with Sydney getting an upset win at the Gabba. Got that tip wrong. Gold Coast Carlton. Gold Coast, pretty comfortable, pretty easy win. They didn't really do heaps. Freo Port Adelaide was a pretty good game. I'm a bit disappointed that was the other Saturday night game that overlapped with Gold Coast Carlton. And then the Sunday, GWS North was a pretty one-sided game. Western Bulldogs Melbourne was a surprisingly good game. Bulldogs just getting up. And then Adelaide v West Coast. Adelaide nearly lost to West Coast, but they got a win in the end. So that was round 22. So my tips for the week, first game of the round, should be a average game. Got St Kilda Essendon, 7:20 p.m. I don't know how this is a Friday night game, even as a Saints fan. Marvel 7:20, Friday night obviously. Essendon 6-14 last week, lost to Geelong by 44. Wasn't a great performance, wasn't horrible. And they've got another debutant this week, just for something different. And then the Saints, 8-13. We've won 3 in a row somehow. We always seem to win a couple of games late. We should be winning this. Come off a pretty bad win against Richmond, but a win's a win, so I'll take it. This game, no one's going to be watching this game. Everyone's going to be watching the other Friday night game, Brisbane Freo, but this game, I'm going to tip St Kilda to get up in this one by 15, with my Ollie's call that both teams combined for less than 160 points. Next game of the round, second Friday night game, Freo v Brisbane, Optus Stadium, 8:35 p.m. This is an absolute blockbuster. I can tell you, no one's going to be watching St Kilda Essendon second half. Everyone's going to be watching this game because this game is going to be a good game. Freo 15-6, won 11 of their last 12, beat Port Adelaide by 6. Was a close win, but a win that was really needed at this time of the year, and now they're a good chance for top 4, which looked impossible about 5 weeks ago. And then you got the Lions, 14-1-6 last week, lost to Sydney by 2. It was one of the probably better games of the year. They did go down in the end. They made it look closer than it was. A pretty good performance from the Swans, but Lions didn't play their best. But this is a big game. They need to win their last 2 if they want to get top 4. So Hawthorn next week, Freo this week, 2 big games. I'm going to tip the Lions and probably an upset here by 9 with my Oz call. Fremantle v Brisbane is the closest game around 23. Then first of 4 games on the Saturday, got Gold Coast v GWS. People first, 12:35 p.m. Saturday. Gold Coast 14-6 last week, beat Carlton by 19. They powered off a bit in the third quarter, especially in the last quarter, especially. They were looking like they were going to win by 40 or 50 points. Carlton did come back, but a win's a win. They're basically locked in for finals, and this game really depends if they are still a chance for top 4 or not. So this is a massive game. And then you got the Giants, 14-7, beat North Melbourne by 54. They need to win this game. This game also probably keeps the top four hopes alive, and if they win this, they're basically locked in for finals. So this game could go either way. Giants won in a close one earlier in the year, but I'm going to tip Gold Coast in this one by 27. And my others called GWS have 10 more tackles than Gold Coast. Next game, Saturday, 1:20pm, Marvel Stadium, got Carlton v Port Adelaide. This is a pretty dead rubber game, as in both teams have had pretty disappointing seasons, and yeah, could go either way. I think the Blues are pretty strong favourites, but I'm not sure who's going to win this. Blues 7-14, lost to Gold Coast by 19 last week. As I said, looks closer than what it was. Was it what you would expect from the Blues at this point in the season? And now, just looking forward to next year for both of these teams, really. And then Port Adelaide nearly got an upset win over Freo. They are 8-13. Ken Hinkley's got 2 games left in his coaching career, so we want to make the most of them. And yeah, they want to win this just for Ken. So I'm going to tip them in probably an upset again. I'm going to tip Port Adelaide by 32. My oldest call, Mitch Georgiades, has 5+ scoring shots. Then we've got the Saturday 4:15 game. MCG, Hawthorn v Melbourne. Hawthorn 14-7 last week, beat Collingwood by 64. It was a very surprising performance. Collingwood have not been up to scratch lately, and it was a surprising performance. And a pretty good performance, and basically locks them in for finals, or not really, but strengthens their case for finals. They should be making finals from here. And then you got Melbourne 7-13 last week, lost to Western Bulldogs by 6. It was actually pretty inspiring performance from the D's. First game under interim coach, and they definitely looked a bit better. And I feel like the D's could give the Hawks a good crack here, or they could just come out and not show up, and I reckon they won't show up. I'm going to tip Hawthorn in a pretty big one-sided result by 65. My others called John Newcomb has 25+ disposals. And then the standalone Saturday night game, due to, well, the AFL have done it because it's a pretty big game. Got Adelaide v Collingwood, first v second, I think, first v third. Adelaide 16-5 last week. Pretty narrow win over West Coast, as in it wasn't the best. Wasn't the best performance, obviously, nearly losing to West Coast. Yeah, first v third, but a win's a win, and they're really just looking to this game. I only beat them by 9. I didn't watch much, but a win's a win, and now they'll be looking to a blockbuster game, Adelaide Oval, on Saturday night. And then Collingwood 15-6 last week, lost to Hawthorn by 64. Pretty disappointing performance, and yeah, it wasn't a great one. And if they lose this, they actually could miss top 4. Melbourne in the last week, who nearly beat them last time they played, so you never know. And I'm going to tip Adelaide at home in this one by 11. So, decent margin with my Ollie's call that the crowd is over 50,000 people. And then first game on the Sunday, 1:10pm, North Melbourne v Richmond. Footy returns to Ninja Stadium. Could be the last AFL game at Ninja for 3 years, given North deal ends. I think they'll actually get a pretty good crowd for once. It was rumoured that Richmond will play there next season, but I haven't heard anything about that since. But moving on to the game, North Melbourne 4-1-16 last week, lost to GWS by 54. Didn't watch much of it, but it didn't look like a great performance from from North. They did have a couple of young stars like Cooper Harvey, Cooper Trembath play well, or mostly Trembath on debut, and Payne made his debut. But yeah, it wasn't a great performance. And then Richmond 5-16 lost to St Kilda by 4. A game they felt they should have won, and they were up at 3/4 time, but they did lose. But they should win this week, so I'm going to tip Richmond in this one by a decent margin of 18, with my others called Richmond lead at all changes. Sunday 3:15 game, SCG have got Geelong v Sydney. Now, on paper, this isn't a great game, but Sydney, they could finish season with 13 wins and missed finals by 2 games, which usually when you win 13 games, you're putting yourselves right up there for finals. And last week against Brisbane, they are 11-10. Last week against Brisbane, they showed how they played last year in the home and away season. Were back to their best, I would say. Played an exciting brand of footy, and if they can play like that again this week, well, they should be beating Geelong. Then Geelong 15-6 last week beat Essendon by 44. It was an okay performance. And no one really cared about that game apart from Jeremy Cameron. Goal watch. So this game, Jeremy Cameron goal watch will be on again. I'm going to tip the Cats though. I'm going to tip them by 36 with my Oz called Sydney lead at quarter time. And then the final game of the round. Fitting final game of the round. West Coast v Western Bulldogs, Marvel 4:40pm Sunday. Western Bulldogs 1-19 last week beat Melbourne. Not the Western Bulldogs 1-19. They are 13 wins and not 1-19. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, 13-8. This game shapes as a big game for them. Got a close win over Melbourne last week. Wasn't the best performance, but a win's a win. If they lost that, they're basically out of finals. But they should be winning this one. Known as the Flat Track Bullies, should live up to their reputation and win by 60 plus points. And then West Coast 1-20 last week, lost to Adelaide by 9. Bit disappointing if they finish their season only on 1 win, given they've still got Bulldogs and Sydney to go. Could this be the game? It could be, but I don't think that's happening. I'm going to tip the Bulldogs by 75 with my Oz call that Norton and Darcy combined for 9+ goals. So just to recap of my tips for round 23, first game tonight, I'm going to tip the Saints. Pretty rare to tip us 3 weeks in a row, but I think that's going to happen. I'm going to tip us by 15, decent margin, not too much. And then Freo v Brisbane, second Friday night game, could be game of the round. I'm going to tip Brisbane, probably an upset away from home. And then on the Saturday, got some interesting games. Gold Coast, GWS. Could go either way, but Gold Coast usually play pretty well at home. Carlton, Port, both teams had pretty disappointing seasons. I'm going to tip Port just because I think they haven't been as bad as Carlton, and they did beat Carlton pretty easily when they played in, I think, round 14 or 15. And then Hawthorn, Melbourne, could go either way again, but, well, I say could go, shouldn't go either way. I think the Hawks should be too strong in this one. Adelaide should beat Collingwood in what is probably could be one of the games of the season. Then on the Sunday, going to tip Richmond in an upset over North Melbourne, Geelong over Sydney, and then Western Bulldogs over West Coast Eagles. Thanks for watching another Oz on the Ball Tips video. Sorry for being a bit later this week, but it should be out again at the normal time next week. But thanks for watching Oz on the Ball, and see you next time as we head into finals.